We've all seen it before. You're walking around the store and some kid goes flying past you playing with some toy in a box. His mom runs by talking about how he's always doing it. A few minutes later you see him meandering around, listlessly thinking about who knows what, until he suddenly starts talking to his mom about some random video game. She looks tired, frustrated, and she's probably been dealing with it all day. Our friend from the store probably has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, more commonly referred to as ADHD. It's a disorder a lot of people know of, but don't know much about. As a budding psychologist, I'm interested in all disorders, especially disorders that are affecting a lot of people. So it's important to understand what ADHD is. In order to better understand ADHD, we need to look at the statistics, some of its symptoms, its causes, and different treatments for it. ADHD has come to be known as an epidemic because of the number of people who are diagnosed with ADHD. According to the Center of Disease and Control, the number of people being diagnosed with ADHD has been growing by approximately 3.25% every year since the late 1990s. Some numbers from the National Institute of Mental Health talk about the national average of children, which ranges anywhere from 3 to 7%. In Oregon, that rate is much higher, being nearly 1 in 10 children who have ADHD. That means for one class, there's approximately 2 to 3 students who are diagnosed with ADHD. It's also a disorder that carries on from childhood through adolescence, and sometimes even into adulthood. So as many as 4% of adults have ADHD. All of these numbers, however, are expected to be low. Since so many people are diagnosed with ADHD, it's important that everybody understands the symptoms that come along with it. A paper done by Michigan State University discusses 3 subtypes of ADHD. And the NINH, National Institute of Mental Health, talks about these different symptoms in different ways. First, there's primarily inattentive ADHD, which looks something like this. You get children listlessly wandering between different topics, having a hard time to focus on any given thing. They look around a lot and they seem like they're not listening. They have a hard time following instructions and seem to have a difficult time remembering things. These problems primarily affect themselves, but sometimes can get in the way of group learning. It makes school and homework very difficult for these children. However, it's hard to spot it because it doesn't bother that many people, and it can go undiagnosed for years. ADHD with hyperactivity is what most people commonly think of with ADHD, and it looks a little bit more like this. You get children who are running around between different activities, using all parts of their body to move around and do all sorts of things that no one really wants them to be doing. They're loud and they talk an awful lot. It's much more noticeable and causes many more problems in the school environment, especially for those around them. And it is diagnosed much quicker, much faster than ADHD with inattentiveness. And then there's ADHD combined, which is both hyperactivity and inattentiveness. It causes problems just the same for the student who's having a hard time focusing on topics, and for those around him while he's fidgeting and fussing all the while. Because of these symptoms, it's important that we know the cause. However, much less is known about the cause than the symptoms. There's different theories on the cause, ranging from diet and exercise, food dyes, to genetics and the environment. Food dyes and diet, over here, are a common, popular idea for ADHD. However, there's not that many sources supporting it. Food dye was very popular in the 70s to be thought of a cause for ADHD. However, there weren't many studies supporting it, so it was abandoned for some time. However, one researcher named Kanarick went back and overviewed some research and found that food dye may quite be a possible cause for ADHD. More research is being done. Genetics and family instances, shown here, are much more likely to be the actual cause of ADHD. Various studies using parents, siblings, and twins have been showing strong links of ADHD in connection. There has actually also been some evidence that different subtypes of ADHD can pass on to children. So if her mother is inattentive, she also is likely to be inattentive. Thankfully, plenty more is known about treatments. Different treatments include drugs, therapy, and what are known as alternative medications. Common drugs are Ritalin, Adderall, and Disoxin. Disoxin is also known as methamphetamine hydrochloride. Seeing as most people don't want their children taking methamphetamine, they do as many different therapies as possible, one of which includes cognitive behavioral therapy. A study done by Emelson showed that treatments are most effective when they use both behavioral therapy and medication. However, for people who cannot afford that, there's alternative medications, which include things like different exercises, vitamins, and dietary changes in order to change ADHD. It's important to understand what goes into ADHD, since there's so many people who are diagnosed with it, and the symptoms are so problematic and troublesome. Thankfully, there's different treatments, although there is no cure. The next step in understanding ADHD is to get the community to be aware of the scientific understanding. That way, more people can become involved in searching for treatment and a solution for ADHD.